building that website, maybe the developer was using a Mac. And unfortunately, the font family is not available on a Windows or a Linux or any other OS like Google Chrome. No, is it Google Chrome? Yeah, the Chrome laptops, you know, they have their own OS as well. So what happened is they start seeing different types of fonts. So two people looking at the same website will be seeing two different types of fonts. And a way to correct that is to set a default text. So that's why we assign it in 2 pairs. So what happened is the browser is going to grab the first one and use that as a font. If it doesn't find it on your own computer, then it defaults to the second one. So the second one is always a default value for our font family. Now, if you are setting a font name or font family name that is more than a single word, in other words, it's separated by spaces, you have to wrap them in quotes. So there's no way this is going to work without wrapping them in quotes, because your browser will read each of them as separate words, and it's not going to be able to find any font family that is called Times or New or Roman. So to make sure that your browser understands that this is a single keyword or a single word, you have to wrap them in quotes, whether single quotes or double quotes, it doesn't matter, but it must be in quotes. And then you can set the default value as well. So that's how we set font families. I believe some of us have tried our hands on that, whether in the class exercises, the assignments, or our side projects that we're working on. Some people I see that have 1 or 2 side projects going on. Good job. And we talked about text alignment. How do you align text? You can align text by assigning text align property and set it whether to center, to left, or to right. We tried some hands-on on that as well. And that led us to having another assignment or classwork, if I remember, on font properties, which most of us in the class also did as an assignment. Then in the last class, we jumped into Chrome Developer Tools. We looked at how you can inspect your CSS codes in your browser. So a couple of times you're writing codes and you just realize that something is not working or some things are not working. How do you even know where the problem is? Maybe you've looked through the whole thing and you still feel like your code is fine, nothing is wrong. The best way to do this is to look into the developer tools. And that's something that Chrome has and have been able to give us for free to be able to use to debug our code. So debugging means looking for where the bug is. All right. So we looked into the browser and we inspected some code and we tried our hands-on on inspecting the code, which most of you did in the class. We also looked at CSS box model. So like I was explaining in that class, in the last class, the box model is an illustration of how elements are represented on the browser. So all the elements you see in your browser when you're browsing through a website are represented as a box. So they have spaces around them, they have spaces outside of them and inside of them, depending on what the user sets. So when we were looking at that, we talked about the padding, the border, and the margin. And we talked about how you can set those things. We talked about when you want to set a border, how you set it. So you start by setting the thickness of that border, the type of the border. Is it going to be solid? Is it going to be broken ones or not? And then you set the color. So if you set these 3 properties, you're going to have your border around your div element or whatever element you're putting the border on. And then we talked about if you want to increase the size of the border, it's just about increasing the first property, which is the thickness. And you can see here initially we have 10 pixels, now we have 30 pixels, the border became thicker. And one thing you need to take note in that is that the more you increase the border, increasing the border does not increase the size of your div element. Rather, it pushes the div element inwards. So it doesn't increase it outwards, it only pushes it inward. So it could reduce the content size, but it does not increase the overall size of the div element, like as you can see here. And we also tried that in the last class as well. We talked about how you can modify your border. So you don't necessarily have to have, you may not want to have border on all sides of your box. You may only want to have border on some specific sides. And how do you do that? You could first set your border on all sides, which is really not going to be a professional way to do that anyways, but you could do that as well. Set all your border and then remove the one you don't want. So in this case, we set all the border to be 30 pixels, solid and black. And then we later came back to set the border top to 0. So in other words, remove the top border, and that's how we arrived at what we see here. Okay. We also talked about the fact that you can actually change the sizes of each border on all sides. So in this case, we have initially 30 pixels solid and black border, which is going to be a thick border around the box. But then we said, okay, I want 0 border on the top. So if you remember, I said the arrangement of these 4 numbers is top, right, bottom, and left. So this, you're saying that top should be 0, right should be 10 pixels. You can see it's thinner. 20 pixels will go to the bottom, and you can see it's thicker than the right side. And 30 pixels will go to the left, which is the thickest. So you can see that here. So in other words, you can arrange it the way you want, but just make sure that if you want to do things like this, you must specify all the 4 sides. If you do not do that, if you specify only the 3 sides you want, remember that the browser is going to interpret that differently. And how does it interpret that? It interprets this as top, right, and bottom. But in some other instances, if you have 3 properties or 3 values set on your border, it interprets it as vertical, horizontal, and then I don't know what it does with this 30, to be honest. But yeah, so just make sure that when you're setting things like this, make sure you set the 4 values for the top, right, bottom, and left. Then we moved on to talking about padding. We said in order to allow the content of a div, of a box, whatever it is, to breathe, you need something that is called padding. And this is not the padding that National Assembly guys usually pad on our budget, but this one is to allow the text to breathe, right? So like if you can look at this right now, it's really closely packed. There is no breathing space for the text. And the only way you can do that, to give them some breathing spaces, is to add padding. And we did something like this. So let's say if you set padding property on your CSS for this element, it's going to increase the size of that element. So in this case, we are setting padding of 20 pixels. What this does is it sets 20 pixels on the vertical, on both the vertical and the horizontal. So top, right, bottom, and left. So initially we said when you set the size of a border, it does not increase the size of the div, but padding increases the size of a div. So you need to know or memorize that difference. And we also talked about having what is called a margin. So while a padding is an internal space that you set, a margin is an external space that you set. In other words, you're setting a space outside the borders of that div. The padding is setting a space within the borders of that div, but this time around, margin is going to set a space outside the borders of that div. So in this case, this is the div, but then we are trying to set a margin of 10 pixels. So it adds some spaces around. So any element or any div or item that is, Wolf, can you shut down your camera? Can I cannot mute anybody, but I mean, I can mute, but I cannot cannot block your camera. If camera is disturbing me. Can't even hear. Okay. So this adds some external spaces, and any element that is attached to this element or to this div will be pushed away by that thing that we are setting. So in this case, we're setting 10 pixels margin. So we discussed about this, and then we also explained the fact that you have to be careful depending on what you want. So if what you want is to set spaces in between 2 elements and the space of 10 pixels, you are only going to set that 10 pixels on one of the elements. Or you divide it to 2 and set 5, 5 on the 2 elements to achieve 10. Don't go ahead and make a mistake of setting 10, 10 on 2 elements, because that's going to give you what? 20. And that's the common mistake that most people do. It might sound simple that, oh, I should know that, but trust me, it's a common mistake that we see all the time. So just take note of that. And then we looked into the Google browser itself to inspect these things, how they increase when we change them in the browser. And we also use this image to explain them better. I expect that some of you would have gone through this again or gone through some other resources online to read more about that. Then we looked into content division elements, in other words, the div, how we use the div, what they are used for, and how we set them on an element. What they are used for is to just create an arbitrary or an invincible box around all our elements, even though I said all the elements you write in CSS are written in or are represented in a box shape by default. There are some situations or instances you still want to set your own box because you need that box to be able to achieve a lot of things like sizes, like moving things around and all that. They have to be in a div. So that's mostly why we need those div in most cases. We went to look at how this div is used in a simple format using this simple code. So we have an hello world text and we have an image of the world, of the globe in the daytime, which is wrapped in a div here. So what separates these first elements and this set of second elements is the fact that they are both wrapped in different divs. So what this div does for them is to create that arbitrary gap in between the two of them. Sorry, it should be together. So yeah, and we did some examples, we inspected them, we also did some examples, and then we did a hands-on for the box model, which most people tried as well. And we also worked on this together. And I believe by now, a lot of people will be able to do that on their own if you are asked to do this today. If not, that's okay. You can always go back and review it and just make it stick. Then I gave these assignments. So this assignment was supposed to be a way to get you guys to get your hands dirty in representing the div, centering the div, having some styling, and just have fun with the code. I saw that a lot of people have submitted these assignments. It actually conformed with the instructions, which is good. Some I made some corrections and I'm happy with what I see so far or what I saw so far. If you haven't done this assignment, please go ahead and do it. If you have issues, reach out for help. We are here to help one another because the truth is, if you really want to learn this coding, these are simple tasks that you should know, you should be able to solve right now. You should be able to solve them to actually advance to that level. They will require some bit of thinking. How do I achieve this? How do I achieve that? And like I said, coding is not like every other profession where you have to rack your brain too much. You can always Google. It's allowed to Google, it's allowed to to research anywhere just to find an answer that solves your problem for you. The only thing we do not do is plagiarism. We don't copy people's code. So you're not going to be allowed to copy anybody's code. Your code must be your own code. Of course, when you Google online and you find some snippets, we call them code snippets, like you want to center the div, and you go online and said, how do I center a div? And you saw a representation of a code, a simple code, like 5 lines of, you can copy that and put in your code. That's not the major thing you're working on. It's just part of the things you need. So that's just a code snippet. But don't go around and copy, how do I, or maybe you go on ChatGPT, I have this assignment, can you please write a code for this? And then you copy the code and give it to me. Well, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. So, and that was where we ended the last class. So we are going to jump into today's class. Before I jump into today's class, can you all take some water to calm down your nerves and ask me questions if you have any questions, guys?
This one way Oga talk say me will take water. Now, if they want punish person life, they go talk say go eat first.
Just take water and calm down. Okay, Alamin, don't be negative. Okay, always be positive.
We don't take water.
Mm-hmm. Good. Good. So, do we have any question on the last classes that I just went through? If we don't have any questions, then I'm going to start today's class. So today's class, we're going to look at intermediate CSS. What we started with on CSS was an introduction to CSS. So we are gradually moving to the intermediate, and then we'll move to advanced CSS. So the reason why I had to go through the previous classes is because I want you all to really have that refresher on the introduction part before we move into the intermediate part. So the intermediate part is going to require a bit of deeper thinking to get to know how things work, how to work around things and all that. It's not really difficult, to be honest. Nothing is difficult. They just require you to think deeper to get them. So, and we're going to start with CSS again, cascading style sheets. And today we're going to look at how competing styles are resolved. So this is actually going to talk. We're going to talk about a way that we can resolve problems with CSS. And when you're writing, the codes we've written so far have been little codes for learning purposes. On real coding, you're going to have a whole lot of lines of code, okay? And you're going to have a lot of CSS because you have to style everything, right? Now, while you are having those lots of CSS, there will be a lot of conflicts, CSS conflicts, because as human, we would make mistakes. Sometimes we'll add a style to a particular element. We'll go and mistakenly target that element again when we are writing another style because we did not know, because we are human, like I said. And it will be difficult to figure out where the problem is, even if you go on until you become very conversant with how to use the Google browser, the Chrome developer tools. It will be difficult to figure out what the problem is. And that can cause a lot of cries, right? So how do we resolve that? It's simple. See, the people that wrote CSS, they've actually given us a way to make sure those did not happen. And that's what we're going to learn today. So how do we resolve these competing styles? When styles are competing with each other, how do we resolve them? Now, we're going to look at the idea of cascade. So if you look at this image, it's like a waterfall, and which I believe would represent a cascade. So let's say there's a CSS property here on the top. And by the time this water falls to this level, there's another CSS property. By the time this water falls to this level, there's another CSS property. Now, what I'm trying to say is that on a particular element, let's say you have defined a CSS property, let's say color, on the top in your CSS file. At some point again, let's say it's an H1 element. You just targeted H1 element and you gave them color blue. At some point when you're writing your CSS code, you forgot that you already declared H1 and you already assigned color. You assigned color again to be red. And then at the point here, maybe when close to the end of your CSS file, you went to go and assign color again for the same H1 and you assign it to be purple. So what you've done here is that on a single H1 element, you already have 3 CSS properties targeting the same element. You know, you've assigned 3 different color to the same H1 element. How does H1 knows which one to take, which one to listen to? Is it going to take the blue? Is it going to take the red or the purple? So these are issues that we caused in our code unknowingly. Now, how do we resolve them? So that's where the idea of cascade comes in. And the only way to resolve is something called style specificity. Style specificity. Now, this is the part that everybody in this class needs to listen to attentively. And I'm begging for that, please. Listen to this specificity attentively because it's going to make people cry. You be writing your code and it's just not going to work. No matter how much you try, it will not work because you have misplaced the specificity of your styling. So let's dive into that. Now, let's say, for example, you have three list elements, a ordered list element, in this case, OL, and each of them is, you have the first one to be 1, 2, and 3. And then you added a style. So your style is targeting LI. In other words, every LI on this page, you're targeting the color to be green, okay? Now, who knows what you should see if you run this code? What will be the color of each of these 1, 2, 3 items if I run this code? You can, so I want you guys, if you can either unmute yourself and say it, or you can type it. I'm monitoring the charts. Okay?
Everything
Green.
Everything will be green, right? Okay. So if I run this code, everything will be green. Now, why? The reason is because we targeted the LI element. So what happens is whenever you target an element, okay? Whenever you target an element, the browser would look for all the instances of that element on the page and apply that CSS property to them. So in this case, the browser is going to look for all the LI elements and apply the color green to all of them. Thank you for the response. Now, let's say you now did something. So instead of having all of them to follow the same style of green like we had before, you now change the second one. You now change that using an inline styling, okay? You're using an inline styling into the second one to style it as color red. Now, this is where the idea of specificity comes in, guys. And I want you to listen again here. So whenever you're styling your CSS or your HTML, in order of priority, the order of priority is first external. The second order of priority is internal. And then the last order of priority is inline. So what I'm trying to say, don't mind my English, is that the inline is more prioritized, is the most powerful among all these three. So the order of specificity comes down. So it increases downwards. That's what I'm trying to say. It increases downwards. What that means in a layman term. Yes, Abiodun?
Yes. I think you concluded, you answered the question I wanted to ask when you said it increases downward, because I wanted to say from the resource I think I've seen, okay, they were saying you obey the last command. So that was what I heard from the last classes you've taken. So it's like if you've asked, if you've made a rule first, the next rule that is what is going to obey until the last one. So that was what I wanted to point out. But I think you answered that question when you said it. The order of specificity is downward.
All right. Thank you, Abiodun. So yes, when you are assigning styles to your HTML, the statement is correct. You obey the last command. But in this case, that's not the situation here. And we will get to the situation that applies to obeying the last command very shortly. In this case, what I am explaining here is quite different. It doesn't matter how I arrange this. Even if I say inline, internal, and external, okay? This is still going to be most prioritized, not the last one here, because this is a different situation, and I will explain that. What this means is that if you are targeting an element, and that element, you targeted that element in an external CSS file, like we used to have styles.css. So let's say here you have targeted this element in an external file like this, and you set it as color green. And then you now went ahead again inside your HTML code and did an internal styling. Okay, internal styling, you still targeted the same LI and set it as color blue. what happened is when you run that code, that li element is not going to take color green. It will only take color blue. Why? Because the browser prioritizes internal styling over the external styling. Is this my English correct?
Yeah, you're making sense with what you're saying.
Are you guys getting this my explanation? Because it's important.
Yes, sir.
So what I'm
Yes,
saying is that if you target the same elements in two different places, first, you targeted it inside an external style sheet, which is like style.css. In this case, we're looking at li. So you said li color is green. And then you went to the your HTML file. You now write your internal CSS. You still targeted li again and made it color blue. What you see at the end of the day is not going to be green for that li. It will be what? It will be blue, because the internal takes precedence over the external style sheets. And again, if you now target the same element, the same li element, using an inline styling method, let's say inside the inline, you now say you are setting the color to be red. When you see that inline, that li list element, it's not going to be green. It is also not going to be blue, but it will be what? It will be red. The reason why it is red is not because you wrote inline as the last code. No, it is because your browser would always take inline styling as important over any other type, over external, over internal. Does that make sense, guys? Tell me, does it make sense? It does?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If it does, now guys tell me, if I run this code, what am I going to see?
You would
Green,
see the LIONE one
Red.
would be green, but then the second one that is styled to be red would be the only red out of the three of them. The other two would be green.
Does anybody agree with
for sure. Green, red, green.
You agree with Alamin?
Yes.
Who disagrees with Alamin? So Alamin is saying that we're going to have the first one to be red.
No, first one green.
Green,
Green.
green, red, green.
Okay, sorry. So Alamin is saying that we're going to have something like this. And we're going to have this. So before I run this code, who disagree with Alamin? You all agree with Alamin? Okay. So let's run the code. So if you run this code, this is what we're going to get. So Alamin is correct, and you're all correct. So what happened is, for the first two, they are going to be green because they only have the external styling. So it will be green. I mean, for the first and the last one, sorry, they will be green because they are only having the external. And since there's no internal or inline for them, they will remain as green. The two would first of all be green because it's going to look at the external. But then the browser will now see that, oh, wait, there's an inline styling for this, and the inline says red, then it changes on to red. That's how this works. Are we good, guys?
Yes, sir.
Do you want me to write a typical code to test this out, or we are okay with this explanation?
We are okay, but you can do a code so that the magic will be sure.
Okay. So let's quickly sample this out. Oh, that's my VS Code. All right, let's try to do something in here. So I'm going to have a quick file, index1.html. And I'm going to have a style, sheets, styles, 1.css. So in my index1.html, I'm going to have my boilerplate. And I'm going to just have the same code that we have in that explanation. We're going to have an li tag of 1, and I'm going to duplicate that to 3, and I will have 2, and I'll also have 3. And here, because it's an li tag, I will go into the style sheet and target li first. And I will say color should be green. All righty. So if I preview this code, right now, I have not connected the style sheet. So here we're going to link the style sheet, and we're going to have style1.css. I need my reference. All right. So now you can all see that this is showing as green, right? All of them is green. Why? Because we are using an external style sheet on all of them, and we already set the color to be green for all of them. If I change this to red, everything will be red. But if I come here and I use an inline styling, internal, not inline. Let's start with internal. And I use an internal styling. How do we set internal styling? You style tag, and then you write your code in here, right? So if I set color to be blue from here, you can see that it suddenly changed all of them to blue, regardless of the fact that we had them set to green here. And that explains what I was saying, that the internal is more prioritized over the external. So the fact that, yes.
If you take this internal above the external.
If you do this?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that's what you were saying the other time.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
In terms of the position,
yes,
which I
exactly.
said we're going to get to. So that's going to affect them in position wise, but I don't want to get this mixed up. Okay.
Okay.
I know you've read beyond the class, but don't worry, we'll get to that one very shortly.
Apologies.
Oh, no worries. I appreciate the fact that you read ahead. So if you set the style here, it is going to take precedence over the external file. There are other conditions, like what Abiodun is saying, positioning, and we'll get there. I don't want to mix things up. Okay, that's why I said today's class, you all need to listen attentively, because there's going to be a lot of things that confuses you.
From what I'm understanding.
Yes.
Maybe because you're using the word prioritize. I know you said it was about specificity.
Yeah.
Right. And so it still works with what Abiodun is saying if the term is specificity, because it's basically working on what it sees here first, what is specific to this like how closely specific it is to the elements, right? So if
Just
you
like,
have something that is external and you have something that is internal, it is closer to the element than the one that is external. And then if you go inline, that is also the closest to the element. And so in that same sense, if you have something on this page that quote unquote is internal, it's reading what is seeing on this page first. So even if you put the style sheet next, it's still the one that's closest to the, I don't know, that specificity is really the term for it.
Yes, so your explanation is very apt. The only thing is that I don't want to mislead you guys here. I don't think I have ever come across any document that explained it that way, that it is because it is closer to the element, which makes sense from how you explained it.
The word itself, it's like something very specific.
So that specificity word, you get to see it in play very soon. The specificity has more meaning in coding sense than how you explained it. But the truth is, the explanation you just gave kind of makes sense, that this is closer to the element. The inline is more closer to the internal, and the internal is even closer to the external. It makes sense, but the truth is, I haven't seen any document explain it that way. Could be true, it could be not, it could not be. So I don't know, but it makes sense. If that helps you to understand it better, keep it, right? That's what I can say for now. If I find anything like that, I will let you guys know. So yeah, so this is what I was explaining here for now is the priority of one over the other. And that's how we got here. So if we now go here and add a class, let's say we add a class and says, no, sorry, not a class. We're going to add a style itself. And then we add color to be red. So because we've now added an inline style to only these particular elements, that one would change. And the reason why it's changing is because the inline is more prioritized over the internal and over the external here. Okay, so this is what I was trying to explain using this image on our presentation slide. Okay, so now, and that's why when we ran this code, what we saw was only the second item turning red. So the order of precedence increases from external all the way to inline. So let's take note of that. Any question, guys? Any other question on this? If there are no other questions. So now, there is something called what's going on here? Now, there are 4 different ways by which we can determine this this order or this priority or this prioritization. The first one is the position method, and that's what Abiodun was saying. So the position is talking about by the virtue of the position of the style, the last one would take precedence. And then there is specificity, which is an order that is determined by the browser. The third one is going to be the type. What type of styling are we using? Because one type would always take precedence over the other type. And the last one is the importance. So there is importance in our styling method as well. So the one that is more important, regardless of what you have done in the positioning, in the specificity, and the type, the importance would take more precedence over others. And looking at this, the order of importance is going to increase downwards as well. So it's going to go all the way down. So if you have used position before, and then you use specificity, and then you use type, by the time you use importance, that will take precedence over every other thing, regardless of what you have done before. Now, let's see how this works. So the first one is the positioning. And this is actually a bug here. And I'm going to correct that quickly. All right, sorry. So the first one we're going to look at is the positioning. Positioning in the sense that, let's say in the same styling, you're targeting your LI, which is your list element, and you set a color of red. Then immediately you set a color of blue. And going back by what Abiodun said before, which is true, the fact is that it is going to take the last one as more important or as more prioritized than every other one. So the last instruction, how did you say that statement again? The last, waiting.
Obeying the last command.
Obey the last command, thank you. So it's going to be red at first, and then you see that, oh, there's blue afterwards, then it will change it to blue. So what you're going to see is going to be blue. The red will be thrown away. Why? Because by position, the blue is the last command that has to be obeyed. And that's the idea of cascading here. So that's the idea of cascading. It goes all the way from top to next and then to the bottom. Okay? So that's the idea here. And we'll check some examples on all of this. Let's move on. Specificity. So now, what specificity means is that you remember that when we were setting CSS properties, I said we can target either by the elements or by adding a class, by adding a draggable, like this way. If you remember, I always use the word draggable. I don't know why, but it's more convenient anyways. Or by adding an ID. Okay? Now, which one will our CSS obey if you have all of these on a single element? So let's take this list element, for example, the one I have here. So here I have a list element that has all of these properties. I mean, all of these CSS styles. It has an ID called first ID. It has a class called first class. It has a draggable again. And then we are saying that, okay, in our CSS, let's say we target the list element by itself already. So we're targeting the list and we're setting color to be blue. Then we went ahead and target the first class again, which is the class here. And then we set the color to be red. Then we say, okay, wait, let's set the draggable color and set purple. But then, okay, let's target the ID this time and set orange. Now, regardless of how they are arranged, the ID takes the most precedence over all of them. So it's more prioritized than every of them. And the order of priority is like this. So meaning that this one is less prioritized when it comes to styling, the element type, followed by the class. The class has a bit of power over the list, the element type. The draggable type, which is not the draggable type, this one is the attribute type. So I call it the attribute. So this one is element, this is class, this is attribute, and this is ID. So the order of precedence goes like that. So the class is more prioritized over the element type. The attributes type is more prioritized over the class, and the ID is the most prioritized. So if you're setting a color on this list element and you set all of this, regardless of what you have done, whether you set class in as a target here or in ID or in class or in attribute, the one you set on the ID is the one you are going to see. So let's give that a try. So let's give that a try. Let's add an element. Okay, let's add on this one, let's add an ID and set color to be purple. Then let's also have a class and call that class yellow, and let's have an attribute. Okay. So now on this and here we targeted this already. Let's go here and then target the ID. What's the ID name?
Purple.
Sorry. ID is, this is rubbish. And you guys are looking at me writing this rubbish. Let's call it an ID. Which color do I use now? Violet? I don't know. What did I miss here? I think I'm missing a code somewhere.
After the violet.
No. That is not. Undo. So ID, I want to call this violet.
Violet.
ID violet, class yellow, draggable to be true. So let me set the ID, which is violet, and then call the color to be violet. And then the class what's the name of the class again? Yellow. And set the color to be yellow. And the draggable. So let's say li draggable and make the color to be
This might seem like a silly question.
silly question. Yeah, no, ask.
But what this draggable thing, like what I don't know what it means. Like I understand the concept of class.
Okay,
Like,
so give me a keyword to use if it's not going to be
so
draggable.
it can be anything.
Yes. I'm using draggable. I'm not using anything because you must use
It's an attribute. Yeah, because it's an attribute.
It's an attribute that must make sense to the code. So if I call this Gemila equals true, does that make any sense? No. Draggable means you are setting this element to be draggable on the screen. So draggable is actually a real property on an element that can allow you to drag that element around on the page.
So if you did a website, you'll be able to drag that thing.
Not on HTML. So it works with other when we get to some level of coding, but not with ordinary HTML. We need JavaScript to make it work. Okay, but it's a true
attribute
that I can use. I cannot just set something that doesn't make any sense. Of course, it could be any word. Let's say what you're trying to achieve on your code in the real sense. I don't know, what can I use? You want something to jump. Maybe you are building a game and you want that element to jump. You can call it jump or jumpable. Something like that. Jumpable, because it makes meaning with what you're trying to achieve. So set jumpable to be true. It means this element can jump. If you set it to false, it means that element cannot jump. Okay, you get draggable means that element can be dragged. So I need to use words that make sense to coding situation. I hope you get it.
Like that. Maybe what is confusing for Gemdem is the word draggable itself, because I believe that you understand that is an attribute. Just like you have the class, you want to just leave it as class, ID as ID, draggable as draggable. Now, is it true or false? I think that is where if you know that, I think that will just suffice, and that will be.
You know what I would say right now? Just take it for me as a keyword, okay?
Right.
When we get into some level of this coding, it will become more clear what they do and why we use them like that, okay? Just take it from me right now as any keyword right now. So let's target the attributes, draggable, and set the color to be cyan. And I think we've set color on every of the methods now. We've set color on the list element, we've set color on the ID, we've set color on the class and attributes. Now let's see how that works. So right now, what we see on number 1 is violet. And where is violet? Violet is actually on an ID. So you can see, so regardless of how we even position them, you can see I intentionally put the draggable as the last. And I put the ID here. So in this case, positioning does not work. What works is that it must respect ID over every other type that I used. So you can see on this element, I've used the list element here, which makes it, which is supposed to set that element to be blue, but we're not seeing blue. I also used class, which is supposed to set that element to yellow, like we have here, but we're not seeing yellow. I set draggable, which is an attribute, which is supposed to set that color to cyan, but we're not seeing cyan. The only thing we are seeing is the ID, the one that was set on the ID, which is violet. And here, that's why we have violet. Does this make sense? Does it conform with what I explained here now? So here, the only one that takes the highest precedence is this one. Is the precedence the right word? Priority. The highest prioritized.
Maybe you know the correct.
Or you both would kill me for this class where I did it.
Now both correct now.
Okay, thank you, Darren.
Those are internal arguments that we're supposed to hear, right? It felt like you argue with your brain. You're like, are you putting the right output.
Okay, so so this one, the ID takes the highest priority over every other one, and that's what we have just seen in play here. Who is confused? Who is confused? Who's confused?
No, it makes sense to me because, sorry, remember how you said ID, no two elements can have the same ID? So it's like ID is the most specific, again, back to the word, is the most specific to a particular element.
Yes.
It's closest to that element.
Yes.
I don't know. When you now talk about the let's see, I think after the ID, then the attribute, right?
Yeah, the attribute.
Again, because it's attributable to an like I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like how close they are, how specific they are to those elements. What
Mhm.
that makes sense.
I think James, let's look at it this way. Like
Okay.
we have a family. My son name is Akimbode. No, hold on. My son name is Akimbode. We all bear Akimbode. Now, I myself, as the father of the house, I'm Julius. That's another. When you mention Akimbode generally, that's the family. But
Yes.
Julius, that
is specific to you.
my
Right?
wife is so.
Okay.
More specific.
What now happens? What now happens in the case of Donald Trump? So we have Donald Trump Jr. and Donald Trump Sr. Which one is more specific? So if your son is Julius, what happens? Which one will take more precedence?
Definitely, I will have to. I will take the precedence.
Why?
Because I'm the first person. I came first.
No, it's your son.
Okay, no.
He came after you.
Okay, no, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Right?
He came after me.
Good.
So there's something that distinguished him from me, and he's the one to get last. So I think I
That's
understand.
right. Thank you for that scenario. I like that. So yeah, so it's just like that. Father and the son, they are both Akimbode. In fact, as a matter of fact, they are both Julius because one is junior, one is senior. But who takes more precedence? It's the younger one. That's why the mommy will always start loving the son more than the husband when they have a child. Sorry, it's just the normal thing, the normal thing.
And we don't have children now. What should we do?
So in this case, the younger one will not be ID.
Yes.
So the one that follows the younger one will not be attribute.
You will name two children the same name?
No. Maybe we have two Taiwo, and maybe you have twins 2 times.
Okay, let's leave it at that for now. All right. Do we all understand this concept of specificity?
Please, 1 second.
I know the position is a bit straightforward. I just want to be sure that we all got this specificity. If we do, let's go to type. So the type, and I already explained that, I guess. So the type is that when you have an external, so this is going to be an external, and then you have an internal, and finally you have an inline. Okay, which one takes, or which one is more prioritized? Again, the order of prioritization would increase downwards. So the inline is more powerful than the internal and than the external. Okay? Yeah.
Pushing plate.
Mute yourself, sir. All right. So the inline is more powerful than the other two. All right. So yeah, I'm trying to check if somebody's in class. Okay, so the inline is more powerful than the other two. So what that means is that, which we've done before, if you have the same style set on in an external sheet, and you set the same style in inline method, and you now set it in internal, and you now set it on inline, the one you set on the inline is what you're going to see on the browser. And without spending too much time on that, because we already checked that, let's look at the final one, importance. Now, this importance is a way to cheat the system, okay? It's a way that we use to cheat every other thing. So sometimes, which is going to happen to some of you, you have tried everything. You are trying to set a color on a div or on an element, and no matter how you set that color, it will not change the color. Oh my, it's just showing different things. You are setting it to blue, but you are seeing red, and you've made sure that you have checked everything. It's just showing red, and you are confused. Like something is wrong. Like witches are at play. Well, it is because at some point you have missed the prioritization thing. You've missed the specificity. Now, the only way to save yourself from that mess at that point is to use the keyword importance. What that does is that regardless of everything you have done before, all the things we've explained in this stage, and in this stage, it will override all of them and change that color. How do you do that? Let's say, for example, you set a color to be blue on an element, and then you go ahead and set the same color to be green. Then you now attach this exclamation mark, and you wrote important. So you have a space in between. You have an exclamation mark, and then you wrote importance. No space between exclamation and importance. Trust me, it would override that doing, no matter what you have done before. Like I said, it's a cheat way. It's not the best way to code, because if what you did here, somewhere here, made sense to the code, and then you suddenly overrode this, it might be a future problem again when you are trying to now override this, because this cannot be overridden again. It will stand there, bang, bang. Okay? But just for the sake of knowing, this is another method of assigning property to an element such that it can override any of the previous properties that have been set, regardless of their position, specificity, or type. So what that means is this. In our previous example, if I go here now, okay, and I say, okay, even though this is showing violet, because this is taking precedence, the ID is taking precedence or priority over every other thing, I can go here and say, but I want it to be blue. I know that ID is more powerful, but I want it to be blue. So what I would do is put a space, put an exclamation, and write important, or be that everything must be blue. So what that does is it overrides everything, because it says that, Oga browser, this color is important. I want it. Attach it to every list element, because that's why you see that every other thing turns blue. We're attaching it on the list.
I need in my life.
Sorry?
This is what I need in my life.
You need important, Abby?
I need to override anything else.
I had the exclamation mark immediately. You run them.
You go run them.
Straight up.
So that is a cheat. It's not supposed to be used all the time, but sometimes you are just like, you're frustrated that nothing is working, and you just need that thing to show. Then you can add that keyword, importance.
It's pretty much needed.
My people, as we are here now, as usual, we will go what's this now?
Your laughter, what I hear you do is like, okay, what is it this time?
I thought maybe, John, you don't want me to go ahead and give some exercise, because we are jumping into exercises now.
No. No. What I wanted to ask was, on this boilerplate,
yes,
is there a way to do a search? Like, is there, trying to avoid this important thing, because the moment you use this on your rule, it becomes a rule. And like I've seen large files, and you don't know, you want to be searching and searching, where is this error coming from? Where is this thing coming from? And you don't want to use important. Is there a way to search? I'm just asking.
Of course.
That's the dev. I think that's the usefulness of the dev tool.
Exactly. That's what we did in last.
As you are like, once you pick on the console or that logo, and you put your cursor on each line, it will show you the attribute. You will inspect everything.
Yes. So any element you click on, you will see all the styles attached to that element in your dev tool. Let's quickly look at that. Where is this? I hate if I have to be looking for my
You can do that 3-finger thing now where you send it shows you all your everything that you have open.
3-finger. I cannot
Three
remember.
dots.
And then
Minimize.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
you do
Jam is talking about minimizing.
2 fingers to scroll on your touchpad.
Yes, that's what I'm doing now. I'm doing it on the mouse, sir. Not only on the touchpad. You can do it on the mouse. 2 fingers on the mouse, and you do like this. You see?
Yeah, but if you use 3 fingers and swipe up, it brings you everything on your.
Oh, you mean to look at what I have, all of them?
Yeah, you're looking for
Okay,
your-
I get what you're saying. This one. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah. I don't have the browser open before. That's why. Okay, I know. Thank you, ma. Okay. Where's my? I just opened the browser now. Where is it again? Let's do what Jen said. Okay. And where is the browser here? I know I did not open the browser.
Was it not the one on the bottom right? I'm confused.
This your CV go don't mad though.
It's not the browser, no, right. I can see something that shows.
Yeah. You see, I got today, Jen. Thank you. I need a PA.
Wow.
I need a PA. Okay. Let's quickly inspect one of the codes that we were inspecting the last time. Let me see if I can find them here. Banana. Where is it?
You don't want to inspect Google itself.
Oh yeah, why not? We can inspect Google, but you know, the reason why I don't want to inspect a well-built production website is that you hardly see HTML and CSS code in the well-built websites because they are server rendered. They are not client rendered. So client rendering means, let me quickly, as a knowledge of this thing. So at this stage that you guys are, for every code website you build, you are doing client rendered website. What that means is this. When you deploy that code to your server, whether it is GitHub like the one we did some weeks back, or you deploy to normal server like AWS or Google or Microsoft Azure, each time somebody wants to open that website, let's say you now send a link to somebody that's my website for my business, and they want to visit that website. What happens is the browser goes to the server, retrieve the code, brings it to the browser, and then run the code. So rendering means running the code to display the visual to you. So it only fetch raw code, and then it runs it and display the visual. But that is actually not the best way to render a website. Why? Because it takes time. So when you see a giant code like Microsoft website, Amazon website that has billions of products, okay? If you fetch those billions of products and then you render them, it will take seconds because it doesn't have to be minutes. Sometimes it could be minutes depending on your internet to render everything on the screen. So what the technology has moved into in the last couple of years is called server rendered. So it will go, first of all, go and render the code on the server. The code is readily rendered there. So when you set a request, it's going to fetch rendered code. Now, when you inspect such code, you're not going to see anything. You just see some jargons, and let's try that out. Let's check Amazon.ca. You will see what I'm trying to talk about. So normally, you would expect that if you are inspecting this code, you'll be seeing maybe a div, H1 or H2, then you see image, you see blah, 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 and then you see for all of this. But that's not what you're going to see. So let's inspect. You are going to see something that looks like, element. We're not looking at styles, we're looking at something else. Who is that? Then, sorry guys, let me take this call. Hello? Okay, sorry guys. What I'm trying to view is that we're trying to inspect this, and I don't know why it's only showing me. What did I do? I must have done something layout.
Is it not the console that you check?
No, I don't need to check the console. I'm checking the elements themselves, but for some reason, I think I did something the last time. I forgot what I did here. What is that? Damn it. Okay, let me calm down. What did I do actually? Okay, let me use another browser. Probably. Okay. This is what I was looking for. Why is it not showing over there? What's the problem? I think I moved this up. Was that what I did? Oh yeah. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about. Thank you. Now, if you inspect this page, this is Google. So let's go back to Amazon. Good. So now, I'll scroll back up. You see that what you're seeing here is all jargons. You can see so many things. You can't even see anything that looks like what you're seeing here, like today's deal, get ready for class. You start seeing so many things added in there, scripts, window.ue and UE, blah, 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 blah. You see, you're always going to be seeing scripts. And this is something that you cannot read yourself. It's not readable to any human, by any human. It's only readable by the computer. So this is what happened when you run your code, when you, to this kind of website that is server rendered, server-side rendered. It is not client-side rendered because the code gets run already on the server before they get fetched into the browser, and then the browser displays them. So this time it is not running live, it is run already, and then the product is fetched to display. It's different from what I showed here, which is a a development code, not production. So this one is a development code. This is the site that was being built. And this one, you can see all the elements and the sections live. So it's different. So for sites like that, it is not going to be client. I don't know how we got to that place. I just want to talk about that. Anyways, that's not where we are going to. Where we are going to is, where were we?
So you were about to say, now that we have gone here, maybe that thing that you scan and say which one is correct. And
yeah, somebody asked a question. That's why.
Mr. Abiodun asked a question. That how do you check? How do you debug?
Debugging. Thank you. Debugging that I was talking about is that that's why you have your Google dev tools, your browser dev tools, which is what I just showed in the browser right now. And it has
just a quick follow-up on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Please, I don't like this gender.
I'm sorry.
So my question is, so before you use any of those debugging, you would have to have deployed the code.
No, you can debug in development like we were doing in our code before. We did that, right? It doesn't have to be deployed as much as you are running the code on the browser. So this is the thing. What we've done most of the time is that we have only run our code inside VS Code. You remember, right?
Right.
We've been running our code inside VS Code. So here you cannot debug anything here.
Right.
With time, when we go past this stage a little bit, our codes will be run inside the browser, even though we are still in development stage. How to do that that's when you guys are going to install what is called live server. We'll get to that level where you're not going to be using this show preview again. You
have
only,
it already.
oh yeah, so some people already have it. So yeah, so when you install live server, when you use live server, it doesn't run the code in VS Code, it runs it in your browser, and then you can inspect. So right now, let me just try that quickly. Live server. Yeah, so live server, if I install this, it's from Microsoft. So now that I have live server installed, if I go here and open with live server, it opened that code inside and it just throw it in another screen for me. I'll drag it down. Okay, well, no. So this is it. So this is now on the browser, and then you can inspect this on the browser. So we can do inspection on this, and you will see my code again. So you see it's an OL. There's a list here. ID violet, class yellow. You can see when I hover on this, it highlighted this. Okay. And when I move down, it highlighted the third one, the second one, the first one, and you can also expand them and see what is inside. You can expand this as well and see what is inside. You can expand all of them, right? So you can do all your inspections here at your do. Now, how do you now inspect the CSS to know if the styling has issues? It's simple. Just drag this up. So for every of the elements, they have their style. So right now you can see violet and anyone that has been overridden. So now this is the case here. You see that the attribute has been crossed. The yellow was crossed. The LI was crossed. This one was also, all of them were crossed except the violet. Why? Because the violet has overridden all of the other ones. So that's how you know that if a color is if a property is being used or not.
Now I understand all the crossing I've been seeing, because yes. I never understood them. I was just like, why are they crossing them? Are they canceling them out?
Oh yeah. So the crossing means they've been overridden.
Sorry to delay. You're doing this thing on the live thing.
On the one no, not on the live server. Yeah. So it renders it on the browser, and now that's where I'm doing it right now.
Can you start again? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So I'm gonna just go back to the code, and this is the code. I already installed the live server. So you go here, you right click inside here. Instead of doing show preview, you go down, open with live server. And then you click that. So it opens the browser. For me, it's opening an existing browser on another screen. So I have to always drag it down into this screen. And this is it.
Oganata, sorry to drive us back again. I apologize to everybody. When you install this live server, the first, because this is the first time I'm using it, what do you think I should click? Should I allow private networks or public?
Close those ones. Just close those ones. You don't need them.
Okay. All right.
All
right. Thank you.
Do you get it now?
Installing the live server on our.
I was hoping you follow through with that thing you were doing and how you got to the inspection, because I thought somewhere.
Okay, let's do it again. So here I've installed live server, and then I'll right click here and open with live server, and it opens here. Okay, so it opens in the browser for me. You can see it, 127 is my local host, and you can see the codes here, 1, 2, 3, right? And if I want to inspect this, I'll just right click and inspect, and then you look inside the HTML.
So for some reason, when I do my own right click, it doesn't bring up the option to inspect.
It should. If you're running it, check first if it opened it in Chrome.
It opened it in Safari.
Remove Safari. You need to set your default browser to Chrome.
Okay.
All right. So you can copy that Safari thing and push it to Chrome, or you go ahead and set your default browser to Chrome first. That's when it will now open in Chrome. So you must open in Chrome to see that inspect. Okay. And then I can inspect the HTML. So the HTML is always the one on top. Okay. You can see the inline style is here. Everything about HTML is here. And you can see all this. And if you want to inspect the CSS, maybe there's a problem with some of the CSS, you want to inspect them, it's simple. You just go onto the elements. Let's say you want to inspect so we have an OL, we have this, we have all of this code, and then you can see that it's CSS. And I was explaining that you can see that some of them were crossed. The reason why they were crossed was because they have been overridden. So anyone that has been overwritten would always be crossed. And that's a way to debug your code, to know why something, maybe you were expecting that it must be blue. But of course, you can now see that the blue has been crossed. Then that will tell you that, oh, somewhere I have override or I have overrode this blue color. So what did I do wrong? Then you can continue checking until you find why something was overridden. Okay, so that's how to debug it.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Any other question? No other question. All right. So since it looks like there are no other questions, what do more PowerPoint to salo. I want exercise. Okay, let's get to exercise. I love this time. So all right, guys. You don't need to scan this time. Don't worry. Let's just respond by mouth. Don't scan. Let's keep the time for scanning. So we are going to look at this code, all of us. This code. Now, looking at this code, can you please tell me, and you're not going to tell me, you're not going to unmute yourself. You should all mute. I'm going to mute everybody. This time you are going to use the charts. Okay, everybody must respond. Tell me if you have this code. So we have an H1 element that has a class and an ID. Now, if you write an external code for both of the, you write an external style sheet and you are setting on the class, you're setting the color to be blue. In the same file, you are grabbing the ID and you are setting the color to be green. Now, everybody should type here what is going to be the final color that you see for this H1. Go ahead. I'm seeing a unanimous vote here.
You like that after person see the first green, everybody just nobody wanna risk their life on blue.
Okay, Abiodun, why is it now? Meet yourself, Abiodun. Why is it green?
Specificity, or what do you call it? Because because the ID attributes take preeminence.
Preeminence,
okay.
Preeminence.
It's okay.
Apologies, you prioritize the idea.
Okay, guys.
I'm gonna bring that preeminence because we don't trust you.
Okay, guys. You know what I want you guys to do? If you can, you either go into your downloaded files for this class, open the PDF copy of this presentation, and have this page open somewhere. Because I want you all to always go there and look for all the exercises that we'll be doing in this class. Otherwise, if you want to make it faster, you can screenshot this page right now and have it somewhere so that you can always look, because most of the questions, the answers will be here. And I want everybody to respond on those questions. I really want it. So screenshot this page right now, or you go and open your downloaded file and look for that PDF for this presentation and scroll to this page and have it open in one corner. It's important. All right. Wolf of Aberdeen, do you agree with Abiodun, and why do you agree with him? What's your hand?
After
okay, yes. Wolf, oh yeah, on mute.
Classroom, I'm taking names of absentees.
Do you agree with Abiodun on his provided answer, and why do you agree with him?
Okay, I agree with Mr. Abiodun because like I said, the green is preeminent.
The green is what?
Preeminent. It's from the ID class. Yeah, it's from the ID class. So definitely we will override the first one. There was an explanation you gave about the first one and second one.
Okay.
Right.
It's not from the ID class. It's from an ID. So an ID, an ID will always override a class. So you can see here, this is the class, and this is an ID.
Yes, because identifying it. Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks guys. Everybody who voted for green, they were right. Okay, let's go to the next one. So the next one, we have this code, the same H1, but this time around, and somebody's going to ask some questions here, but let me wait for who is going to ask first. This time around, we have an H1 element as well. On that H1 element, we set a class, only a class, but it has two classes. So we have the first class is a class, and then another class. And this is the typical way, if you want to attach two classes on one element, you're not going to have class equals to, and then class equal to again. You are only going to define one class, and then you can use spaces to differentiate between different classes. So you can have more than one classes on one element, but they must all fall inside one class definition. So class, we have an A class, and then we have another class. Now, these two classes are defined differently. The first one, a class, is setting the color to be blue. The next one, another class, is setting the color to be green. So I want you all to go on that chart again and tell me, when you run this code, what color do you see? In 1 minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Junior, Bao, we have to call junior. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. I'm so manual. But you need timer. You need time. 1, 2, 3. My God. Tomato timer. All right. I believe everybody would have responded already. So let's see how many responses we got. So we got so Jem said green, Alamin said green, Abiodun said green, Julius said green, Majid said green, Jaido said green, Wolf said green, green, then Wolf said blue again. Okay, and Abiodun said junior. Junior, where is the junior? Abiodun, where is the junior coming from? JR.
So I wanted to buttress, when we were explaining that time, we talk about Trump Junior and Trump.
Okay. I get it.
So that is where Junior came from.
I got you. All right. So Bob said green, and Jem said blue, and Jaido said blue again. Kilon Shele, my people. Why are we switching sides like this?
You did not read for the first one. Those greens you were reading at first were the first greens that they responded
to. Are you kidding me?
No.
Yeah, the time for the second one.
Assignment. Me and my
it was the first one. The time for the second.
No.
The time for no, that's true. That is true.
The time for the second one started 8:43.
That's right.
Okay, so
43. Yes. Thank you, Alamin. You are smart.
Can you please go back to the question, sir?
So I'm starting from 143 in my time. Abiodun was the first person that responded. He said green.
Yes.
Alamin said green. Wolf said blue. And then Bob said green. Jem said blue. Jaido said blue. Thank you. I like this one now. This one, we have a porous class. Oh yeah, let's go there.
Can we go back to the question?
We can. We are going there.
I'm even confused a little bit.
Oh yeah, this is the question. So we have two classes. Okay? The first class and the second class. The first class said blue. The second class said green. Which one would take precedence among these two? Is it blue or green? And I've gotten my answer. Is anybody changing their answers? Because they have to tell me.
I think I'm still, my mind is in both places.
I know now.
The another class, it seems like a more
not green.
A more specific.
Okay.
So
I think it's blue.
I
It's
just
Which one is
blue.
more
one.
specific? Which one is more
It's
specific?
blue.
I'm thinking
It's
another
blue.
class is more specific.
Oh yeah, wait. If you vote
No,
for
I'm
blue,
going to scan.
if you don't scan anything, or don't go and Google anything now.
I'm scanning it.
If you vote for blue, raise up your hand in the this thing. Use the hand raising tool. If you vote for blue, please, blue. I want to see those blue people. 1, 2.
I voted for blue.
Don't write. Don't just raise the hand inside this thing. Okay, Julius. Okay, I can count yours. 1, 2, 3. Blue. 3 blues.
I see my hand though. I clearly typed blue there.
Okay, 4. Gem. Okay.
I don't even know why. I just went with my gut.
Okay, so Jaido, Wolf, Gem, and Julius. If you vote green, please raise your hand. You can lower your hand for blue. Then green now. Green. Majid, Bob, Alamin. Majid, Abiodun, Bob, Alamin. 4. It looks like we have 4-4. That is interesting. So we have a very, very equal this thing. So now, thank you. Lower your hand. All right. So team blue. Somebody should volunteer to tell us why they chose blue. Somebody, I don't want to call anybody. Somebody should volunteer. Team blue.
The first person that wrote blue should come.
Who was that first person?
I didn't first type blue.
Daido, tell us why it's blue.
Okay, so well, what I picked blue based on the fact that the first content was, the A class was the first, when the class was defining the element or defining the A class part. Now, the other part was another class, which, of course, it comes second in that place. So I picked up that. I picked it based on the fact that the class was identifying first. So, and that one is, I just saw another class as an afterthought of the class that was being defined. So, yeah.
Who else in the blue section have a different reason for choosing blue?
Well, I think, in my own opinion.
Are you a blue person?
Yeah, Julius is a blue person. Okay. So, number one, they are both under the class. I mean, they both have the selector class.
Okay.
Now, because the A class is the one coming first.
Okay.
It's going to generalize it to everything within that context.
Okay.
But for the fact that they both fall under the selector class, it will take precedence for the first one that appears as against the second one.
All right.
Because
the
of
green,
the
Team Green. Thank you, Julius. Team Green. Somebody should volunteer to tell us why they chose green.
Mr. Abi, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I actually want that, but
okay. You want that?
Like, every one of us just the guess. We don't get this for right.
Okay. Okay. Somebody wants.
Yeah.
Alamin. They say they want Alamin. Tell us, why do you choose green?
Okay. My own reason is number one, because by the virtue of the position, I believe the another class is like Oga Abiodun said, obey the last command. And I feel the another class is actually, the last instruction for the class, and that is color green. So that is why I actually did, pick green. Yeah.
All right. Any other person from Team Green that has a different explanation?
Yes. Even though we know that using the scale of preference, using like specificity or what that word, using that in this case, we don't have an ID. Yes. But if we are going to go by that logic of that example, when Julius was bringing up the Trump conversation, there is a junior. Even though they both bear the same name, they both are the same class. It's one that is superior because of the additional information provided to it, like that. So, but when they were explaining the blue part, that was when I saw the A- class. I was only going with the dot another class.
Actually, a dot was missing here. They are both classes, so class will always have a dot.
So, but I think another class is.
So your mind is a bit shaking. Maybe it's actually.
No, it's not shaking actually. But I'm just saying because I didn't see the dot on the A, so that was why I need to cut that out. Like, when they were speaking, that was when I saw that. But I'm convinced it's a green. But I might be wrong if the teacher say I'm wrong.
All right, thanks everybody. Thanks for providing your.
The dot was actually confusing.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. The dot was supposed to be. It was confusing. So does adding this dot change anybody's opinion or anybody's answer?
It changes my opinion actually.
So you're no more team blue, or what were you before? Team green?
Still live?
Team green, yeah.
So you are now team blue.
Still live?
So 5-3. 5-3 now. Who else is changing their answer? Because
that the dots actually.
Majid, where you did?
Majid, are you changing your answer because of the dot? I need to know. Sorry about the dot.
No. The dot wasn't going to affect anything. They already specified them as class.
No, it will affect when you're selecting.
100%. When you're selecting when you're selecting it's actually.
I know, but the topic said class. If you have the same class, you know this is typo.
Okay, so no other person.
Now, question and answer with this now. As the
all right. No, we are learning. This is even the best way to learn than me just talking and talking and talking. Trust me. This one is the best way to learn. Okay. All right. If no other person is changing their answer, it's 5-3. So we have 5 for team blue and 3 for team green. Now who won? So team green actually won. And this is the reason why Alamin's response was the best response. That explains everything. It's just the position. So right now you have class. Both of them are classes. So none of them would take precedence over the other because they belong to class. What is now going to come into play here is position. So you remember when we were talking about position, we said here, when you define something, the one that comes after, and you remember Abiodun's statement, obey the last order. So in this case, we are actually obeying the last order because both of them are classes. But now one is defined and one is now defined after. If there's another one after this, that's the one that will take precedence because the last one would always take precedence in this situation. So the answer is green. Thanks, everybody. Does everybody understand that explanation or I need to explain again?
Yes.
All right. So let's go to the next one.
This one is long, yo.
So this last one, we have an HTML boilerplate. And we have an H1 here, an H1 element. That H1 element has an ID. Also, it has a style definition. There's a bit of
there's a confusion there.
Yes, that's okay. What I'm correct.
1 equal to that's
everybody close your eyes. I teacher want to do something.
Okay, I thank you. I just corrected that. So we have a style definition, which is an inline definition for style. We also have an ID definition on that same element. Now, inline ID. Now we now went into the head using to define the inline style. I mean the ID, sorry, which is internal as green, color green. But then inline, we still define the color to be blue. So now we have an ID, which we also know is very powerful, Abi. But then we have an inline definition that has a style color blue. Now, let's go again on the messages.
Don't stress us for this one. You don't already tell us. This one.
I don't tell you. Oh yeah, now let's see now.
This one are blue. Now in line. Now precedence.
Type your response. Type your response.
I don't put blue.
Oh, you guys are already typing. Oh, got you. Okay, so blue, bala blue.
I won't blue. Blue.
Are we going to have a unanimous blue?
He's blue.
Wallahi. Me 14 co-op.
Even in the way you listed the picture is cascading importance. So blue important is the overrider, followed by inline, then followed by all the LI and dragable. Then
so
followed by position.
So you're talking about this, Abby. Where is it again?
Yeah, draggable na the last one.
This one,
Like this.
Importance you do override type, type you do override specificity.
It increases down. Increases down.
All right, you guys are smart. You guys are smart. Clap for yourselves. Clap for yourselves. You're all smart. Yeah, that's the answer. So it's blue. So because that takes precedence over whether it is an ID. So the type takes precedence over the specificity. That's actually what that means. All right. And you all are going to go on break. And the break is going to be, because we've spent a long time today, 10 minutes. And then when you're back from that break, you all are going to work on this hands-on. So if you go into the downloaded files, let's do that together quickly. If you go into your downloaded files, you will find that task. I'm going to look for it now. You'll find that task. So I'm going to delete the nonsense I wrote in this one, because this is actually the file that you are looking for. So go ahead and look, go into the downloaded folder and open 7.0 CSS Cascade. That's the one you're going to work on. 7.0 CSS Cascade. Yes.
Never mind.
Okay.
Let me not drag Tisha.
Drag me.
No. I have to behave like an adult. Where did they say? 7 points.
7.0 CSS.
I have not downloaded 7.0.
The file you downloaded the last class. I mean, when I downloaded last now, that should be lesson 8.
Oh, okay. So I stopped at lesson 7.
Okay, so you need to download lesson 8.
So I go to Google Drive, have you?
Yes.
Apologies.
So while you guys are downloading, I'm going to explain this quickly. What you are going to do. This is what you need to achieve. This is what you're going to achieve.
Is it in the shared drive? Sorry.
Yes, now it's always in the shared drive.
I'm seeing lesson 7 there.
Refresh now. Maybe you've had your browser open for a long time.
Shared with me. Oh, got it. Thanks.
So we have this is our goal. You can see there are a couple of divs embedded into one another here. We have an outer one, which is purple. We have another one, which is blue. And then we have a red one, which are 2 types. And then one of them has white, both of them have white text inside them, and then yellow text outside. So right now, this is how it looks. Okay. What you all need to do is to find a way to, you are not going to add anything to my CSS. You're not going to change any of my CSS code here. Don't remove any of these 2 that I already have here for you. Just write your own after this last one, after line 12. Start adding your own code. Again, don't edit any of this code, this CSS code, because I'm going to check it. Don't manipulate this. Write your own as a continuation after my own CSS code. Now, for the CSS, for the HTML, this is the code. You're not adding any other elements here. You are only trying to add your style. So what you're doing is styling. I want you all to look at this code using the knowledge of what we learned here in terms of when we were discussing specificity and all that thing, because they are very important. You need to use that skill to be able to answer those, to solve that exercise. So where's my file again?
Okay, so are we just limiting it to the specificity of?
You are using everything. You're using all. That's why I say
see that the white text is not on the same. It has a padding compared to the yellow text, and then the sorry. You
don't solve the problem right now.
Sorry.
So that's why I say you should screenshot this thing, because you need all the skills or knowledge from this page to be able to solve that exercise.
Okay, go back.
You know screenshot before, Abi?
I did not, because I was trying to get the.
Because you are feeling like a big boy.
Yeah.
No, Oga Latas, I was just trying to see the.
Don't worry, screenshot now.
I was trying to see the Google Drive. I couldn't see lesson 8.
Okay, so now you're going to modify this to look exactly like the goal, like this, using all the knowledge of cascade that we've learned here. You must take note of the precedence, the one that takes precedence over which one, because you're going to need that here a little bit. All right. So you all are going to take a break, a 10-minute break, and then you're going to take another 15 minutes to solve this question. Now, what is going to happen today is that I'm going to go pick my kids now, but I'll be a little bit late because I need to help drop somebody after I pick my kids.
Can we all do? Or is it strictly personal, or we can all do?
You can all what?
Can we all do, or is strictly individual?
No, you can huddle. You can huddle and help one another. That's fine. That I'm okay with huddling. You can do it as a group.
Drive is not updating. What's happening?
I know. So you can huddle. You can huddle. You can talk, but don't send code to one another. You can huddle to ask questions. You can huddle to help one another in explaining things, how things work, but don't copy code and send code to other people to paste in their own distance. It doesn't make sense, right? All right, we are adults. Okay, so 10 minutes and then 15 minutes. Total will be 25. And where's my tomato? Pomodoro.
Is it tomato?
Pomodoro timer. Pomodoro, yeah.
Where's the file that we're downloading again?
Wait, what?
7. I'm checking 7.0. I don't see.
No, lesson 8. Lesson 8 jobs.
Oh, okay. I don't know that. Okay.
All right. So total will be 25 minutes, but I'm going to make it round up to 30 minutes. So that I can. Yeah.
30 minutes is very sleeping time in Nigeria.
So 30 minutes, guys, you all are going to solve this. Come, let me even call if they are ready, because before I will enter road and they will now tell me they want to greet somebody. I don't have time for all this.
All right, that's which area are you going?
Back nights.
Okay, I want to just calculate the time.
Yeah, because no, not just Mac 9. I'll pick them in Mac 9, then I'll pick some other kids and drop them at the stuff. And this is what we have right now. And this is the HTML. Okay. So what I was trying to say is that we need to consider all those factors, because if you look at this code critically, you would see that a lot of divs shares the same class name. So the outer div has a class called box. The inner div also has a class called box. Even the innermost one still has the class called box. What that means is that you have to be careful what you do on box, so that you don't keep overriding styles for yourself, okay? Now, instead of using that, a typical example, if you already I already styled the box for you guys, this box. I already styled it here. And I said, don't update this, which is fine. If you now need to, let's say, for example, style this one, and it has class of box, then you have to do something else, because you know that since you already have a class for box, anything you do here would affect this. So that means.
Sorry, are you saying we can create extra class for ourselves just to make it easier?
No, I am not saying you have to create a different box, because I see that all of you did exactly that. Because I already defined P, most of you, if not all, T has P in their own style. Then you cannot define a single element more than once in the same CSS class. It is not done. So you must have something else. You must have a different way of getting to that element.
All right.
Not redefining that same property. So I already defined the box class. I defined the P element. I don't want to see anybody defining box or P again in their code by whatever reason. All right. So having said that, let's solve this together. And I want you guys to follow me as I solve this. All right. Now, first thing I'm going to start with is this. I already have an idea of how this looks like. Looking at the goal, I can see that we have an outer box, which is the purple. We have a blue box, and then we have the two inner red boxes. Then I have the text on them, and I'm going to start from the text. Why am I starting from the text? It is the innermost item. So the way I would think when I'm solving this is this. I'm going to start from the innermost item and work outwards. Why? Because it will help me to avoid some conflicts as well. So if I start from the innermost, and the innermost here is the white text. So there's a class called white text. The first thing I will check is this. Is there any other white text that is on another element apart from the P element that I have here? These two P elements are the only ones that shares white text, and they are almost the same. So definitely I can create a class for white text and style that as white. So that's where I'm going to start from. So I'll start from here and I'll do white text. Then I'll add color to the white. That's the first thing I'm going to do. And when I run through everybody's code, I'm going to quickly do, I'm trying to compare so I can see if there's anybody I need to correct.
Mine is.
That's what I did. I've got that as.
I did the same thing.
So, well, I see that where's white text? You did not do that, Julius. You add p dot white text. That's you are redefining. You are targeting the white text inside p, and then you have another text, another properties inside that white text. There shouldn't
I
be
did white
properties.
text.
So I did not use the P. I did not use the P again. Okay.
Even if you do, you see that there's no need for all those other properties because text does not have background color. Look at this. So text is a paragraph. There is no background color for paragraph, but you set background color on the same white text. And when I look at other people's code, I see the same thing on Jide's own, and I don't even see anything like that on Bob's. I don't see white text. What's this? Is this?
I've not sent mine.
You have not even sent me anything yet.
Yeah, well, I did exactly the same thing.
Okay, yeah. So most of you do the same. So that's why I'm going to explain all this so that you can see how I'm thinking through this myself. Now, so I've done the white text. What's the next thing in line? The next thing would have been the P, which is this. But I already defined that, so don't touch it. And I said, don't touch it. It should be yellow text, okay? And it's already showing as yellow here. So that is fine. Now, instead of you redefining every other thing on that P or on the white text, what you need to look at is here. The next thing I want to do now is to assign the red color as the background for this white text, just like we have here. And that's on a div. Now, where is that div? This is the div.
Box, inner box.
So since it has box and inner box, I don't want to touch box because box has already been defined. And I said nobody should touch it. The next thing I should be targeting is what? Inner box. So I should be defining the style for that background on inner box. All right. Now, this is where positioning might kick in. Let's see how positioning will affect that definition. So if I go here and I define inner box, and I said background color to be what? Red. If I preview this, I have it there. If I move it up, let's say I move it before the P, it still works the same way. So positioning is not affecting it actually. So it could be anywhere. If I move it to the uppermost part, then there's a problem. Can you see that? So positioning here would be important. If I put it on top here, it doesn't take any effect because the box also has background color and it's going to overwrite it. So the best position for this is either going to be here or at the last point. So I'm going to leave it here. And there's a reason for that, because if there's going to be any box definition, it has to come after. So
I said we should not move your own.
Sorry, Latas, please, can you go back to the HTML?
I came back to
Can you go back to the HTML?
Hold on. I came back to explain that you can put your code anywhere, but don't touch the code I have. Don't update the code I had, right? So yeah. So you can move this anywhere and you can have it at the last part, except on the top. I was expecting that you guys will be trying a lot of things, then you see which one is okay, which one is not, and then you can correct it. Yes, Bob.
Yeah, what I did was that I wrote my background color inside the white text, and it still gave me the same result.
So that is not correct. Okay, that is not correct, because if you go here, look at here. So this is white text. White text is a paragraph element. Paragraph. What it means is that if I have another thing here, another P here, and it's green text, okay, in your own case, it is not going to work, because the red will only show on the white text. It will not cover this part.
Okay.
So let me try that for you to see. So let's say I added this white text. Where is it? This white text, the color white. I added this background color in there. Was this what you did? You added the color, the background color inside of this,
Exactly, yeah, that was right.
And you got this.
Exactly, yeah. That was the result I got. And it's so similar.
Well, it looks similar, but that's actually not correct, because the background is not going to be on the P. It's actually, you can see the difference here. So if you do that, then you have to go and add padding. You have to now, if you did what you did, then it will force you to start adding padding to make it look like the way it should look, like this gold looks, with the padding around it. Okay? But look at my own solution. If you take this out and put it right here, you don't need to add extra padding, because that's where the background color belongs. It doesn't belong to a paragraph element. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah. So what you are saying in essence is this: for each div, Latas, are you listening?
Yeah.
So for each div in our HTML, we have the paragraph, we have like two elements in each div.
You don't have two elements to wait. Let me see what you're saying.
Okay, we have in each div. Okay, we have
you have one div and you have another div. Then for each of the div, you have two elements. You have the text.
The div and the
and then the div that carries another text.
Now I get what you're saying. Right. I didn't think.
So it is this div that has the background color. It is not the background color itself. It is not the P element that has the background color. Yes. So that's why if anybody mistakenly added the background color on the white text, it will choke the text. You now have to go ahead, and that's what most people did. Everybody now started adding padding to create that space. So that's why you're going to have too many codes to solve that problem. Meanwhile, the only reason why you're having too many code is because that is not the actual solution. The actual solution is that the background color must go inside the box itself, inner box. Noted, right? Great.
Yeah. So Latas.
Yeah.
So I got it and I did not get it.
Well,
so in terms of the structure. Let me explain.
Yeah.
So in terms of the structure, my structure was correct. So what I did was, but why I said I did not get it is that I forgot that on the HTML, box and inner box,
why did you not send me that code of yours? That code that you're talking about that you wrote. Why did you not send it to me?
Because I've not yet, because that's what I'm trying to explain to you.
Okay.
So I've forgotten that box and inner box.
No,
wait now. Let me so we can learn now.
We are solving now. Except you have questions.
Tell us what you did.
Don't tell us what you did. If everybody has to tell me what they did, then we are spending the whole day to talk what they did, right?
Oh, okay. Apologies. Okay.
If it doesn't match, just watch what I'm doing and then ask questions if there's anything you need to clarify. Okay. So let me continue. Now, so I've added, you can see that with minimal code, I've been able to solve most of the problems here with minimal code, and only that I added background color inside the inner box. Okay, now let's continue. Next thing I want to do is to have this outer purple color, which I think most people got that right. If I go through again, I think most people got that right. Yes, most people got that right. But I see some issues. So the issues I see here is that some people thought that was a border. It wasn't a border. It was the color of that div itself. So if you look at the structure of the HTML, this is an outer div.
The outermost.
One thing you need, outermost div. One thing you need to note is that when you have divs enclosing another div, what that means is there's going to be another box overlaying another box, the original box. So in other words, this outer one is a div. This next one, box, is going to cover that one. If there is any other one inside, like this one, the red, it's going to also cover that one. So it's going to be layers of boxes, right? Now, if you can think about it that way, then you will know that this outer box does not actually have a border. The reason why it is showing that tiny strip of purple was because there's a smaller blue box that is covering, that is standing on top of it. Okay? If that makes sense to you, what I'm saying is this. Where is my writer? I'll show you what I'm saying before I solve that. I want everybody to get this right. This is the outer purple box. Sorry, it's a blue, but it's purple. Now, the outer purple box is this one. Now, the one inside, which is this box and this box, they are inside of this. Look at this. And the next one, there's no space in between them, kind of. I don't know. Like that. So when you look at the remaining portion here, after that one has sat on it, it looks like a border, but it's not a border. It's actually the remaining parts after the covered parts. So if that makes sense, right? What it means is that what you're supposed to set on the outer box is just the background color. So let's give that a try. So if you set background color, so if you go here,
we have to put it before box.
Yes, it has to go before box. And it's an ID, right? I think it's an ID.
Yeah.
Outer box. You can already start seeing the changes. So I grab the outer box, and if I set the background color to purple.
One quick question. So are you trying to say now that the position that we place any of these classes, it matters inside, how it will come up?
That's what we have been discussing for the whole of the class today.
That was
position matters, the specificity matters, the type matters, everything matters. That's the essence of today's class. We are not learning CSS from scratch today. We are only learning those things: the positioning, the specificity, the type, and the importance. Those are the 4 things that we learned today in the class. And those are the things that we want to apply to these exercises and any other one that we're doing today.
So my question,
Matters.
how do you immediately know, like, as we're looking at it, some of us did think, I thought it was a border.
Yeah,
so
that's what how you know is this. The structure. So there's an outer box. That's what I was trying to explain here. There's an outer box, and there are inner boxes. So the outer box, see, the way I used to know, let me tell you my cheat code when I was at this level. My cheat code is, when I see plenty boxes, I'm confused. What I do is, on my own, I'll go and give all of them background color, different colors. When I give all of them different colors, my eye go clear. Okay, this is the idea here. Okay, so there's a box here. There's another one in front. There's another one. That's the best way to solve this, to solve any problem where you have nested divs. If you have nested divs and you get confused, just calm down. Go to all of the divs, grab them, either by class or by ID, and give them different background colors. It will show. Then you'll be able to see, okay, there's an outer div that is purple, there's an inner one that are blues, and then there's another inner one that is red. And that follows the way they are arranged. Who raised hand first? I think it was Bob, right? Or was it Majid?
Yeah, the outer box, I put it on the the last part, the down part, and it still gives me the same result. So I want to know if it's making
because it's an ID and it's the only outer box ID that we have there. So of course it will override, it will stand on its own. Nothing can overwrite it. Whether it is on top or it is down, it's an ID. Okay.
And I think based on that picture, I think it also, in that arrangement, it overrides position.
Yes. Yes. Majid, what's your question?
No, it's not a question. It's the same thing that I wanted to say, that mine was at the lower part and it still ran.
Oh yeah.
So pretty much for me to get what I did to get the div splitting was just to click on each of the div, the topmost div, and see where the end. So that I use that one to see where it is, which div is containing which div.
Yes, that's a method I use too. If you click on any of the divs, you will see where it ends, where it starts and where it ends. If you click on the next one, the line will be thicker or bolder for you to see how it ran. So you can know that this is the div. If you click on this one, you see the line gets thicker, and then you can see that this is another div. So yeah, I use that method as well. But yeah, either you do that or you just paint all of them different background color to see what is going on. That way you would know that there is no purple border, is actually a different div, because it's already showing here that there's a div called outer box. All right. So yeah.
But that's before you proceed. So just like what you said, what I did using the paragraphs background, I was applying background to the paragraph. So now that I've used the div to give me the background color, if I still apply color to the text, background color to the text, which is the paragraph, it will still come out. It will override. I mean, the order will be, the background color for the paragraph will be up, while that of the div will be black. But what I now noticed was that because the paragraph is not the same depth or the same height as the div, the blue portion of the paragraph was just like midway, and I have the remaining portion down as red for the div. I don't know that you get what I'm saying. Just as we have it now, what you have on the screen. If I now decide to add a background to my white text,
so let's do that. Let's do what you're saying. So this is white text. I'm going to write background color, and I will do black. Oh yeah.
So I just want to corroborate what you said, that we did it wrong. Now it's not full. Now it's not full.
It's not going to be full.
Yeah.
So that's what tells you that the background cannot be on the text. It has to go on the div itself, except there is a specific instruction to add background to that text. Then you can add background to it. But in this case, the background belongs to the div itself.
All right.
That contains the text. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Does any other person have any question on this? Don't worry, this comes with practice, and that's the honest it comes with practice, but you have to understand that concept. It is important to any developer. Let me tell you the consequence. The consequence is that, which we always see with every junior developers, is that because these things look too critical, it looks like it requires a lot of thinking. We don't want to do it. We want to find a way to just get the same thing. So we end up writing a lot of CSS codes, and it becomes conflicting. We will get tired, and we ourselves cannot even debug that code anymore. The only way to avoid that, to write minimal code that does a good work, and anybody who picks it up will be able to understand it, is to understand that concept, or that four concepts of the specificity, the positioning, the type, and the importance. It is very important. So guys, take time later, look for other materials, go on YouTube, read and learn more about this. It is important. All right. So if there is no other question, we are going to continue, or we are going to stop. What do you vote for? So if we should continue, say yay, because today's class that I prepared was actually very small, but right now we've just done half of it. So what do we do at this juncture? My time is 5 minutes past 3. Do we extend to 4 or do we stop here? Whatever you guys vote for, I agree.
Ogalatas.
Yes.
Can we snapshot the solution into the exercise?
Can you do what?
Snapshot the solution that you've just done in class.
Why not? That's the essence of solution. I expect you to be editing your code as I'm solving it.
No, I just felt that maybe since we've solved it, there's no need to shoot it into the exercise.
Once I solve any exercise, I don't want to see anybody sending me anything again. It's already solved. Just solve it. Just solve it and understand it. That's the point at that time. Just solve and understand it. After I have solved it, there's no point.
That's what I'm asking.
How far should we carry on? It don't happen.
So you should type your own answer. You're asking us questions.
Let's do a vote. If you want us to continue
to carry on now.
If you want us to stop here, I want to know. Okay.
We stop here.
I have one yay, I have one nay.
We need to look for ways to meet everybody. This class rep zone. That's your answer. Don't stress me.
You are not a co-host. Sorry.
This one is
I have 50-50. One yay, one nay.
Type. Let me know if I'm going to
consider Nigeria is time to sleep.
Just type. Just no need to take stop story. Put your votes down. We are voting right now.
We stop is here, Abi.
Why are they campaigning? Just type a.
Julie, politician near me. Just type here, yay or nay on the chat.
You never type.
My yay, they first. Yay.
Type here too. Just.
You know, well.
Julius, yay means continue. Just so you know.
I know, that's why I said yay. I'm singing that song for the yay.
Okay. So we have.
I'm not happy with this vote.
I don't think Nay can win this game. So we have yay. So if you
beat them silly.
Are you part of the yay?
So if you
beat them silly.
And I mean that was me.
Why are you typing yay this time?
In every election.
Okay, if your response,
are you typing
election? Why is going? Don't let's waste this rest of time. If your response is
where are the other people?
If it is nay, we already have a majority vote here. There's no need to look for any other person. I think we have 7 votes already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes. We have, and that's 5-1. We only have 3 more people in the class, I guess, or 2. If your response is nay, you can exit the call. The video will be available after the class. Then you can just watch the rest of the class, which is very okay. Let's continue. I want to try and see if I can finish today's thing. Let me tell you guys the truth. The pace that we are going right now, our curriculum will take us 3 years to finish.
You let them be doing family responsibility.
I have slowed down. I have broken things down. I have reduced the content, and even as much as I reduced today's content, we still just covered half. Okay, so what that means is that there's going to be a longer way to go. Okay, I don't mean I want to rush it, but then we still have to find a way not to get to that law of diminishing returns. When we get to the peak, everybody gets tired, and then we just lost interest. That's what I'm trying to guide as well. So let's finish today's class. We have another 40 minutes. If you can't, it's okay, just drop and then watch the video. I will try and make sure I release the video tonight or tomorrow, latest. Okay, so let's continue, guys. So we are going to continue with, where is it, this one that is always coming up? Okay. Where is the eraser?
Ogalatas, you didn't put goal in this. Okay, don't worry. Apologies.
All right, sir. Okay. So we already had break, so we're not going to have another break. Let's quickly treat these parts. So we're going to discuss about combining CSS selectors. What?
I thought you said you were going to get your kids earlier. You've done that.
Yeah, because I am getting them and getting some other people. The other people I want to get, they are still waiting. And my kids too, they like to jump on the bouncing castle there. So they will want to stay. So I will pick them after the other people are ready. So we are going to talk about this.
This Sky Castle that they have.
Eh?
Is this Sky Castle or what?
No, they are in they are in front of Prairie Winds, so they would have moved to Prairie Winds now. So they will be in Prairie Winds enjoying it. And they always want to stay longer anyways. Okay, so combining CSS selectors, that's what we're going to talk about now. What CSS selectors means is what we have been doing so far, and that is this. If you remember, when you say H1 and then you write your CSS code, this H1 is actually an element selector. So that's a selector. When you have class, let's say dots text or whatever you call the class, and then you define your CSS, this is a class selectors. But apart from writing each individual selectors, you can also combine more than one selectors in the same CSS definition. In other words, you can have something like h1 dot text and then define that and add some CSS codes here. You can have ID and then you can add another class attached to it. Just make sure that you write it exactly the way it should be. There are rules that guards all these things, and those are the things we're going to be looking at now. So there are ways we can combine the CSS selectors to target a specific element that we are styling, okay? So there are so many cases when you start writing, like I said, the real production code, where you have a multi-level embedded element, where you have, maybe you have a div, there's another div inside of that, there's another div inside of that, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one, like 10 levels down, and then you have an H1. How do you target that particular H1 that belongs to a particular parent? Those are the things that where we now need to write to use these selector combinations. It's not that you cannot solve those problems or you cannot write the code without the combinations. No, you can still solve it. But like I said before, it's going to take you a whole lot of confusing codes to achieve the same thing. But there are shorter ways by which you can achieve this. So let's look at it from a normal day-to-day perspective. And what example can I use? If you live, or maybe if you are matured in the year 1990 or 1991, and you want to drive a Volkswagen Beetle, if you all are aware at that time, to reverse a Volkswagen Beetle requires a lot of steps. You will still be able to reverse it, but you are going to first of all clutch down, you press down the gear, and then you move it to the left, to the right, and then drag it back. So 4 steps: clutch down, press down the gear, drag it to the right, and drag it backwards before your car can actually enter the reverse mode. Today, with the advent of no gear cars, like the 2023, 2022 cars that we have, they are just buttons. So you press on the reverse button, bam, and the car reverses. So you can still drive your Beetle today to go in reverse, but why do you need to do that when you can actually press a button and make it work? Because if you're learning to drive that Beetle, you get confused on which one is reverse, which one is gear 1, which one is gear 2, because every time you want to change the gear, you must clutch down and look for the position of that gear, whether you're going to bring it right and then up and then right. You know what I mean, right? So this is exactly what is happening here. If you are going to solve some of these problems in a real life production code, it will take you a lot of codes and that will be confusing. So to avoid that, we have what is called CSS selectors combination. Now, how do we use those things? Let's say we have a code like this, where we have a paragraph element, and we also have a div, and inside that div, we have another paragraph element, just like we have in our exercise that we just did. So there's a P element, yellow text, and there's a div, half box, and then inner box classes, 2 classes, and then there's a P called white text. I mean, the P element white text. Now, to style this, of course, let's say you want to style this P element, that is white text. You can actually grab a P and style it, or you can add a class name and style it. That makes sense. It looks good because we are only dealing with 3 or 4 lines of code. The actual way to grab it, so when I'm explaining this, I want you guys not to look at it from the level of these small bits and pieces of code that I'm using to explain. I want you all to imagine these in a situation whereby you have 3,000 lines of code with so many classes, with so many elements to style, and things start getting confusing. That's where this is actually applicable. But we have to talk about them now. Okay. So to be able to achieve this, let's say you have this P, white text, and there's this P, yellow text. And you want to style this particular P, not this P. Now, if you target P and set the color to be yellow, at first, both this one and this one would be what? Would be yellow. Yeah. Okay. Now, how do you now differentiate between these two P without adding ID or a class or an attribute? And again, I'm saying, don't look at this from the level of dealing with small code, right? The way to target this, if you're using one of those ways where we use CSS selector combination, is to first of all call the parents of that P. What you're saying is that although I'm trying to style a P, but I want the P that is a child of this class, inner box. So you're saying grab inner box first, and then add a space. Then I want that P that is a child of inner box or that belongs to inner box. So if you style it this way, this white color would be applied to only this P and not this P. And I'll go back again. You are
sorry, Latas, if it is written in the reverse, the P then dot the inner box, will you not do the same thing?
That would actually amount to a technical jargon. That a P cannot contain a div.
Okay.
You get that? So there are levels in elements. A P is just a paragraph. There are set of text. You cannot add a div inside a paragraph. No, it will not happen. So that would amount to a technical jargon. I don't know what will happen if you try to run that kind of thing. But if it is not a situation whereby you have, if it's not, let's say div, of course, if you reverse it, then that's not going to work because there is no P, there is no this that contains this. There's only this that contains this.
Yes. Yes.
So the arrangement matters. So the first one is going to be the one that is containing the next one. So the inner box is containing the P. In other words, you're saying, grab me that P that belongs to inner box. And then the browser will look for this P and style this text as white. Okay. And that's what you're going to get. Now, this is not the only way we combine text or we combine selectors. There are multiple ways, and those are the ways we are going to start looking at going forward. So let's say all right, so this changed the color, and I think I made some double this thing there. So let's go to all the combinations that we can have. The first one is going to be a group combination. And what that means is whatever I put here under this group combination would be applied to both selectors. Let's see how that works. So you have first selector, there's a comma, and then another selector. Then you put in a color definition, and you are setting the color to be blue-violet. This is a typical example of that, and then let's look at how that looks on a code. So let me go back again and see. The first selector, comma, the second selector. So every selector that you select, that you add here with comma, you can have more than 2. All of them, whatever you define here will be applicable to all of them because you are separating them with a comma and space. Okay, now let's try that in a code. So I'm going to use this one. So this is the code that you just saw there. This is under 7.1. If you want to follow me, it's under 7.1 combination select or being combining selectors. So we have an index.html file that has all this code. So there is a to-do list. On Monday, you want to do these things: wash clothes, read, math questions, other items, and then whatever that we have here. So we want to use this content to practice all these combinations. All right. Now, what we want to do in the first one is that, let me close this one. We don't need it again. Let's say, is that we want to make sure only this header to-do list and the Monday gets this blue-violet color. Now, you all know that you can target them separately. In other words, you can say, okay, since that is all I need to do, you can grab the H1 and grab the H2 separately and define them. Like what I'm saying is you can have H1 and define color to be blue-violet, and then go again and say H2 and have color and set blue-violet. Now, this is going to solve the problem. It already solved the problem. We have all of them. But why? Since both of them are sharing the same properties, there is no point redefining that same property. Remember, I've always talked about something called the principle of reusable codes. All right? So we always need to keep that at the back of our mind, that whenever you see yourself repeating the same thing, there is going to be a better way. There's always a better way to do it. And this is one of the cases where you see yourself repeating the same color on an element. It could be more than color. It could be color and some other things. As long as they become the same, you can actually combine them. So what you do, instead of writing it this way, is to do comma H2 and then remove this one. So what you have done here is that you have grouped them together to achieve the same thing by not writing this twice. So that's the first thing we talked about, grouping. In grouping, you separate the selectors with a comma. Yes?
Do they necessarily have to be on the same line or on another line?
Well, when I typed it, they were on the same line. But yes, because we have a formatter in place that helps us to format our code, it pushes the next one to the other line. So that's just a work of formatter.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is grouping. You group them together, separating them with a comma and a space, and apply or write your CSS property you want to set. All right. Do we understand that, guys? Can I move on?
100%.
Fair enough. Thank you. Now, that is grouping. Now, the next one we're going to look at is the one that uses the concept of child or children. Now, the difference between the group and the child is that the group uses comma and a space, but the child type uses the greater than sign. Okay, the angle brackets. I'll call it the angle brackets. It uses the angle brackets. So you're going to have the first selector separate, the first and the second selector separated by an angle bracket and spaces. Now, what that means is that you're saying whatever you want to target, which is the second one, must be a child of this first one. Sounds like what I explained first.
Yes.
So how do we target that? Let's see that in code. So this is our HTML. And in this case, we want to target this, do these things today. That's what we want to target. So we're targeting this one. And that's here, the paragraph here. So we want to target this paragraph. You can see that we have multiple paragraphs on this page. We have another paragraph here. We have another paragraph here. But we want to be specific about the one we are talking about, the paragraph we are targeting. Although it has a class of done, which you can say, but this thing has class now. I can just start class done. But look at this. There are other classes called done here. So which means you cannot use that class because other items or other elements share the same class. So because you want to be specific, you want that styling to be specific to this P, then you can use the child method. How do you do that? You are going to grab the parent of that child. The parent of this, of that element. The parent of this element is what, guys?
Do these things.
The box.
The div.
The div called box.
Box.
That's the parent of this element. So you're going to target the parent class, which is a class here. You target that box. And then you have your angle braces before you now grab the P. So what you're going to do is this. You're going to target the box, and then you have an angle, and then you grab your P, then you open your whatever. And what are we trying to set there? We are trying to set the color to be red. Yeah, red.
Red.
So we set the color to be red. Okay, and that's how we have it. So even though there are multiple P's on that page, the style we just, there are multiple done classes on that page. The best way to achieve this without it affecting any other P or any other item that has class of done is to use the child targeting. So you grab its parents and then you grab the name of that element. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
It does. Oh, I'm happy.
Can you please go over it one more time?
Okay. So
that's before you go. So like what we have now, if we have two paragraphs inside this div box, so how do we go about that? And we want to assign different color. Does that mean we have to?
Then there will be other method to do that.
Other target, okay.
If you are not targeting both of them, you are only targeting one, then you have to look at other methods to do that. And you can also think about that now, or wait until we treat all the groups. Then we'll revisit that question. Keep it. All right. Then James said I should go through this once again. So this time, we want to target these P elements. We want to style only this P. Now, one of the ways that we can style that P is to just call P and then add the style, color red. But if we do that, and I'm going to do that step by step. So if we say P, and then we set color to be red, it affects more than one P.
All over the P.
All over the P. So, well, we don't want other ones to be red. We only want this one to be red. So what do? We go back again. Okay, now there's a class. Thank God, there's a class. Let me go and use the class then, since you have a class. Then I will remove this, and I will make it a class of done. There's a problem again. Other things still share the red. Why? We don't want those ones to be red because there are other items or elements that has class done. But we only want this red color to be on only this P. What do? You can actually say, okay, let me go and add an ID or add another class. But how long are you going to keep doing that? Because you keep, at some point, you will add and you run out of class names or ID names. And then you start naming jargons. Instead of going through that process of adding, the best method is to do specific targeting. And one of the ways is to use the child targeting. So you grab the parent of that element and then grab the child, which is the element you are looking for. So in that case, you just do the parent, which is called what? Box. And then you grab the child. And to grab the child, you must use the angle brackets. And then you call the element P. That way, it will only be applicable to only that element and no other element. Jenya, how do you feel now?
Good, thank you.
Great. Any other person ask question? Bob, yeah? Ask.
Yeah, please, can we go back to the page, please?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, can we go back to that code again?
The CSS or the HTML?
Yeah, the CSS code, yeah. The HTML code.
Yes.
Yeah, on that, okay, I think I get that. That is under, it's not, the under P class.
It's outside.
The down one is, it's outside, it's not under the div.
It's not inside that div.
The div, okay. Because I was wondering, I wanted to ask before that, okay, if I want to target the down P elements.
This one.
Yeah, the one under
it has its own parent. Its own parent is UL.
Okay.
So you can target it using its own parents too. Its own parent is UL. Okay. If I say that, and that's a good question, you can say UL and then grab the P.
Okay.
And define the color to be purple.
Okay.
You can see only that one turned purple.
Down top of, okay, yeah, I get that.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
Galatas,
Yes.
so I did something now. Instead of using the angle brackets, I just spaced the box and the P, and it also came out as red. What does that have any?
It has effects.
Okay.
It has effects because that's not actually targeting the child. It's targeting everything under that, not just the P. So what that means is if you have more than P, if you have another thing, all of them should be red.
Red.
Okay.
So the child must be using that angle braces. And it's going from left to right. The left is going to be the parent, and then the next one or the right is going to be the child. All right.
Okay.
So that is the child, using the child method. Does anybody, and this is not red, it's actually fire brick. I'm going to use that. Anyway, that's not important. I just want to be, yeah, so it's fire brick. The color is called fire brick. Okay. If there are no other questions on that, let's go on. So after this, we have what is called the descendants. So that's the one Julius just did.
Okay.
So the descendant uses only space, no angle braces, no other thing. It's just a space between the two selectors. And how does this apply? It applies to a descendant of the left side. So descendants, it may not be only one, it could be all of that. And that's what I was trying to explain to you. So now we want to style all of these list elements here. We want to style them to be blue. But when you look at the code, you will see that all of them are children or descendants of something, of this UL and a list. Okay? So they are all descendants of this, and they are also descendants of box.
Yes.
Now, yes, they are also descendants of box, but box has more descendants compared to the UL. Okay, so since this is the closest parent, we are grabbing the parent and then we grab all of this. We're going to style all of these in what? In blue.
Okay.
So to do that, we will just go here, like I did before. You grab the parent, which is a UL, space it, and then you grab the list elements and you style it as color blue. All right. So that's how this works. Quite simple and straightforward. Am I right?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay, so that's on descendants. It's easy peasy. The next one we're going to be looking at is chaining. Chaining. So chaining is when you have more than one selectors that are attached to each other with no space, no other sign, they are just joined together. And how that works is that it applies where all selectors are true. All selectors are true. So in this case, we have this list element that was initially changed to blue when we did the other part, but then we want only the first one to be blue. We want the other ones to be green. Okay. Now we need to use the chaining method to achieve that. How do we achieve that? The way to achieve that is to grab the parents, no spacing, and then grab the one we want the style to be attached to next to the parents. Now, there's going to be a little bit of confusion here, but let's try it, and then I will answer any questions that you may have on this one. All right. So let's say we have here, we have the first one, which is list, no class, but then we have this last two that has classes of done. But you remember that we also have classes of done attached to other elements on the page, like this one. But we want to style the done. But in this case, only the done that belongs to this list.
Yeah.
All right? Only the done that belongs to that list. So to do that, we're going to have something like this. And the list is class. Now, this is where the problem is. The done class is, I mean, okay, there may not be a problem on this one because they are both classes. So we can attach them and say dot done. And then define. What I want to explain, I'll tell you now after this. Color is what?
Blue.
Green is sea green.
Sorry, green, yeah.
Sea green. Now you can see this, it does not work, or it did not work. It did not work because there's a problem. So now it's grabbing the class list and then done. Let's see here. So we have a class, which is the parent, that is list. And then we have a class that is done. But then when we apply that, it never worked. Now let's grab the box and see if that works. If we grab the box, it still doesn't work. Can anybody think through this and tell us why this is not working? Even though we said we can attach them together and make them work.
Is it the dots you are putting?
Well, the dot is actually representing a class.
So I think what we have here, but we have to target the UL too. Because that's the parent.
Yeah. So you're saying we should do UL dot
box UL.
Box dot UL dot done, Abi.
Oh, box space.
Space.
Okay, box space. But we are not. But that's not. We are treating the chaining method, so we can't use anything space. Now let me tell you what it is. Let me tell you what it is. When you are using chaining method, you are not necessarily thinking about parents. You are only targeting that element itself, but chaining it with the class or the ID or whatever else that you have on it. So what that means is that even though we have 3 list elements, but we want to differentiate which of these 3 list elements that we are talking about. Now, if you just grab them by their list, it will apply to the first one too. If you grab them by their class, it will apply to any other class that you have on that page. Now, how do you make sure it doesn't apply to any other thing? It is by grabbing the list and then grabbing its class. The LI and then grabbing its class.
So you don't list.
So instead of grabbing the parents list or grabbing the grandparents box, you are going to grab that element itself and then attach its class to it, because there are only 2 elements, which is actually our target, that are list and also has a class of done. So you chain those 2 things together, the list and done. Now, common mistakes. Don't make a mistake of doing done.list because it's not going to work, or maybe .done.list.
Even the yellow is not even indicating, sir.
Right. So you are going to grab the elements before you grab whether it is a class or an ID or an attribute. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
Yeah. I had to go that route to make sure that you guys understand how this is being used first. Okay. Now, that's on chaining. The next one would be combining the combiners.
Combining the combiners as well.
Which is going to be the last one anyway. So it's called combining combiners. Because now you want to combine the combiners, and you can see how that looks here. We're going to have a selector, which you can guess that this would actually be a parent, kind of. And then you have the inner ones, maybe the descendants, that will be chained together to achieve what we want. Okay? Now, what we want to achieve here would look like something like this. So we want to target these other items, and we want to make it smaller. So now let's go find out other items in our HTML code. So this is other items. Here is a P element and it has a class of done, right? But we also have another P element that has a class of done. So we don't want whatever we apply to this to affect this. How do we do that? So we are first of all going to grab the parent, and then we are going to grab the P.
Sorry, please. Come again. So start again from the other.
So it's easier because
let me start again.
People should be allowed to answer one question.
Oh boy, this thing no days.
It's easy. It's easy. So now we have all of this, and then we want to style this one. We want to make it have a smaller size. These other items on the page, and we need to use the combining combiners method. Now, what does it even mean? How do you even know you need to use this? And that's what I'm trying to explain here. You want to style this, you want to reduce the size of this. Okay? One of the things that will come to your mind is, maybe is a P element. Let me reduce the size by P now. But if you do that, it will affect every other P on that page. You already know that by now. Then you'll be like, that's not going to work because I don't want the other P's to have smaller size. Then you think, okay, it has a class called done. Then you grab the class. If you do that, it's going to affect every other element that has the class of done. Right. So how do you do it? So you have a P element with a done, and there are other P elements with done. So you don't want that thing to affect other items except this one alone. One of the things you can do, or one of the ways you can do that, is by using the combining combiners. And what that means is you're going to grab the parents and then use the chaining method to target that particular element. What does that mean? Here, the parent is a UL space, because if you look at the method, it shows that there's a space between the first selector and every other thing can be chained together. The first selector is going to be the parent, and every other thing that applies to that specific element. So we grab the parent, which is the UL in this case. Now, what kind of element is it? It's a P element, and it has a class called done. So you can now say P.done, and then we can style that. Font size. Then we can define our font size. What's the font size again?
0.5 rem.
0.5 rem.
Yeah,
Thank you. You can see it becomes smaller. So this is another method to target a specific element. Trust me, if you want to do this a different way, you are going to write not less than 6 lines of code to achieve this thing. You're going to keep running around, beating around the bushes, affecting other things, and then coming back and then resetting the other one and come back here again. Headache. The faster method, the easiest method, is to apply these concepts. You're not going to get everything right here in this class today. You're only going to do well by later, when you are relaxed and you have some time, pick them up, review them, and make sure they stick. Because you will need them going forward in all the projects that we're going to be doing. I'll be looking out for them. Okay, so even though you have an assignment or classwork and you've been able to solve them, and I can see that the solution is looking okay, I will check the code. I want to be sure that you are utilizing these methods. You're not just writing long lines of code when you can write a shorter code to achieve the same thing. Best practice is important. Remember, clean code, no smelling code. All right, guys. Now, is there any question on that, guys? Because that is going to be the end of today's class. There's not going to be assignments today because I split this class into 2, like I said. We need to cover the other half before we can do the assignment and the project. There's a project for this particular portion. There's a project for that, but I want us to finish the other half of it. Then we can now take the assignment and the project to achieve closure on this one. So overall, any question, guys? Any confusion? Any comments? Do we need to slow down more than this? Do we need to keep it going like this? Your wish is my command. Just know that if we keep slowing down, at a point we'll get to the peak, the instructor will be tired, the student will be tired, and I don't want that to happen. I want us to achieve this. I want to be able to say tomorrow that go and check my last set of students. They've gotten their first dev job and they're doing well, to be honest. So yeah, other than that, I'm going to stop recording.
Okay, so okay, that if we are to
hold on. Just please, so let me stop recording. Where is the recording, sir? Recording Salo.
Recording are very, very important.
Come on, cancel this now.